So, today we will be talking about camp. The Susan Sontag essay, which was published for the first time in 1964. I've read this essay like multiple times and I still am not completely sure what it is. The first time I was exposed to this topic, this style, was with the Met Gala when they had camp as a theme. It's something that we've all been privy to, like we've all seen it, but we might not have always had the words to describe this certain style. All of that being said, I'm not qualified to teach anyone about camp, but I wanted to kind of document my process of trying to understand it. I have her book here. I have a bunch of highlighting. I have all these notes that I took. One might call them notes on camp. Basically, I'm gonna read through them. I'm gonna try to like go through and pinpoint all of the defining traits of camp. Then I'll come back later and just give my personal thoughts, give like new examples that weren't used in the essay to try to, you know, solidify my understanding. As I said, I'm not teaching anyone, but maybe watching me try to understand might help anyone else who's trying to get it too. And so yeah. Basically, the way the essay is structured is she starts talking about how like no one has really talked about camp and it seems kind of like a silly thing to take seriously. Essentially a style based on being extremely exaggerative and in a way artificial. She says it's a sensibility based on the love of the unnatural. It takes serious things and converts them into something exaggerated and frivolous, and it basically creates like this layer of artifice to lay over the natural world. I think my favorite definition that she gives for camp, it is high-spirited and unpretentious. It's a kind of art that you can go out and just enjoy, and you're not thinking about like, you know, all of these. It's not supposed to be academic, and that's part of why she decides to use a list instead of an essay. She says it seems ridiculous to try and write a treatise on camp when that goes against what it is in essence. Multiple times she says how nature, sorry, there's a car. She says how nature can never be camp because camp is all about being, for lack of a better word, fake. A lot of other aesthetic styles are based on, you know, how beautiful is something? Where are we finding beauty? Where do we place beauty in the works that we're looking at? Contrast that with camp, which is based on how much artifice can we find in something and how much can we create in a certain place. It's a different scale to judge a work of art on. After giving a kind of definition of camp, Sontag then begins to list a bunch of, you know, thoughts that she has about defining camp, as well as a ton of examples. And I'm making a list here. I'll show it. Here's a list of a bunch of the different things. I tried to catch everything, like this is camp, this isn't camp. But then camp gets even more broken down because she starts talking about pure camp versus deliberate camp. She says there's a level of innocence in camp, and in this exaggeration that it's trying to achieve, it has like huge outlandish goals that people wouldn't expect to be achieved, but the person who's creating this work of art takes it very seriously. And there's a level of like a childish innocence. When we're ingesting it, that innocence is kind of challenged and corrupted. Pure camp has this sense of failed seriousness. It's trying to be serious about something that it genuinely loves. And when we consume that and it fails to be serious to us, we get something that is campy, but the love is behind the work of art is what preserves it, compared to when someone is trying to be camp on purpose. A lot of the time there's too much disdain and anguish in the work of art. The deliberate aspect of it prevents it from being true camp. It's really interesting to see how existential themes pop up in this. I keep saying essay though, it's like a list that ties into like Albert Camus and the myth of Sisyphus, just talking about absurdity, existentialism, how it's like there's a theater of life and we're trapped in these four walls that are like, you know, the Matrix. It's like we're seeing all these things that we think are familiar, but it's a layer that we put on top of other things in the world, which is really hard for us to define. I almost forgot to say something about this, but look, I'm even wearing these pig slippers in honor of camp because, you know, they're trying to be what they are not. Again, with the existentialism and absurdity, it's things being as playing a role, things being what they are not. What better to demonstrate that than some slippers that are trying to be pigs? Leaning into that artifice to become and transform into something else that is super stylistic and exaggerated and gaudy and just beautiful. Camp itself, she says, is a sensibility, and a sensibility is something ineffable. That's why when we're trying to understand it, it's so hard, because it's something that can't essentially be defined. It's kind of like, if you get it, you get it vibe. That's why I think just reading this essay makes it difficult to understand, especially today, because, you know, she depends on a lot of examples that aren't as current for us. A majority of them, as you can see in the list that I made, are things that you wouldn't necessarily know without doing a lot of intensive research. Me living today in 2021 now, it's impossible for me to understand a work of art in the context of the 60s, even if I can find it and watch it. There's a couple things that are debated about her ideas on camp, and one of them is the presence of politics. She says that it's apolitical because to her, camp is based on a confrontation between style and content. And if you read some of her other essays, Against Interpretation and On Style, I feel like there's a bit of a paradox in her reasoning, but I'll get into that in the later part of the video. Basically, she says camp is produced when the style of a work of art undermines the content. The works that are more likely to be campy would be anything that's like really based on aesthetics. Furniture, clothing, opera is usually campy, ballet, that like you decorate the fuck out of this serious topic and then you get a camp product. She talks about the presence of androgyny, epicene, and homosexuality in camp, because camp is very much tied to homosexual counterculture. It's very difficult to see how it could be both tied to homosexuality and also apolitical when, you know, sexuality is such a political topic. She has said that she doesn't necessarily agree with everything that she wrote at this time. Her ideas definitely changed over time, and this was more so her way of trying to make sense of what she was seeing around her. So I'm gonna definitely read this essay at least one more time, but then I'm gonna come back with conclusions, final thoughts, questions, and also I'm going to be bringing some treats. So yeah, let's get into that. All right, folks, I have my flowers, my pastries, and my literature and my secret sticky note that's right here behind the flower vase so that I can remember what the fuck I'm supposed to talk about. Look at this outfit, this shirt, this skirt, this shoe. I just want to relax with you and talk about my last bit of thoughts on camp. Yeah, so I reread the essay again, and I just want to talk about like questions that I had while I was reading it, and then I'm gonna give my own list of things that I think would be contemporary examples of camp and not camp. So let's get started. Let's open up the pastries first. They're so pretty. See if I can show you without. I don't actually know what any of these are called, so we're just gonna eat them. I got them from this French bakery by my house. Oh wait, actually I do. This one is tiramisu. This desk makes me feel like I'm at school. Okay, let's get into it. I'm just gonna straight up read the notes I took. How do we identify good taste, and how do we define good in a universal way? Camp is very mingled with this idea of something that's so good it's bad. So bad it's good. When you talk about a work of art, you're talking in qualitative terms, but a binary of good or bad seems to be quantitative. I guess the core of it is how much excess is there in a work of art. You start using a different scale, naturalness to complete excess and exaggeration. Another question I have is what's the difference between taste and sensibility? But I'm pretty sure she talks about that in another episode, what the fuck? In another essay on style, which is actually in the beginning of this book. She specifically talks about how style and content are separate in the work of art that is camp, and how style undermines content, and that they're like butting heads. But in her essay Against Interpretation, she argues that assuming that there's content to a work of art rather than just enjoying the form is a subtle philistinism. Let's get another one. Her definition of art on style and in Against Interpretation requires you to look at art as a formal experience, focusing on the visual aspects and the textures. Saying that there's a content and a style at odds goes back to that previous method of thought, conceding to the idea of content, acknowledging it in a way gives it that power again. Okay, I'm not sure what this is. I think it's some kind of tarte de framboise. We got these. Raspberries. Cheers. What the fuck? That's so good. Okay, when she talks about homosexual taste in relation to camp, she says that homosexual subculture enjoys the playfulness and the way that camp can dissolve morals. Camp enjoys vulgarity, and it enjoys being playful in the light of a serious, high, aristocratic culture. The people who participate in it, in a way, have claimed this role of being like a tastemaker. In this one essay, it's by Noah Belatsky, called Camp is a Utopian Vision, Alice Guy Blachet's The Consequences of Feminism. Noah talks about the politics and the way that a lot of people say, no, camp it does belong to, you know, the gays and the gals. It's specifically for us while still being part of mass culture. And that's something that Sontag talks about a lot. With mass culture, aristocratic tastes have to become even more and more specialized, but camp finds pleasure in mass culture, not because of this weird supply and demand taste economic model, but like just because there's pleasure to be had everywhere, and why not find it even in things that are simple to get? Doesn't that even make it better? last pastry, well, last mini pastry. I will be eating the rest of these, don't worry. I just want to show all of them. I don't know what this is. It's like a mini brioche avec du crème. Je voudrais apprendre le français if someone wants to help me out. I'm just gonna take a bite out of this shit. We got cream everywhere. Crazy how I'm gonna be in this cafe every day now. The cute little paper doily in this box. What the fuck? It's so cute. And like the stamp. Alors, so now I'm gonna give my list of camp things. I'm just gonna do it fast and loose the way Sontag did. I wrote this in the middle of the night last night and I don't remember what I wrote, so let's go. One thing she says that is camp are actors who always play themselves. So naturally Jeff Goldblum, an especially camp performance of his was in Thor Ragnarok. He's playing this like super gaudy, eccentric character, but at the same time, he's still himself. Twee cinema also, it has the potential to be camp. Twee is like this genre that's just really cute and visually pleasing, aesthetic, nostalgic. Think Wes Anderson and, you know, Diablo Cody. Jennifer's Body is camp, but Juno probably isn't. A lot of the Wes Anderson films are successful in achieving a dignity that would be associated with high culture, so they don't necessarily make it into camp. Another question I had really quick is, I wonder if an absurdist style mandates a camp sensibility? No, not necessarily absurdism, but like surrealism. Someone else help me out. Live action anime adaptations. And also cosplay in general, camp. Moonlight / flashback diners. You know, those diners that are like deliberate, we are the 1950s, but not really. She acknowledges that camp canon changes over time as certain things go out of style or are less relevant to us. We get a certain level of detachment that lets us just enjoy and look at it in a more objective way. Electronic music, Harry Styles, I would say Fine Line is camp, but his earlier album is not. Bad Bunny is camp. The entirety of the Twilight saga. Reality TV has a tendency to be camp, especially from the 90s. Think Flavor of Love and I Love New York, those shows. Flavor Flav himself, he is camp. Another question I had is, what are some camp video games? I'm really wondering how new technology and the digital atmosphere of today has influenced camp canon. And obviously that's something that all of us get to decide. Everyone is collectively adding to the taste and no one can really gatekeep it. I was questioning, like, would Animal Crossing be camp? Would The Sims be camp? I feel like the way that The Sims is dead ass, like you're looking into the absurd walls of the human experience. In some way it has to be, right? And all of the different models, and you know, if you get the special like jailbroken version of Sims. And last but not least, the Fast and Furious movies, very camp. It's my small list. I'm gonna put a better, more aesthetically pleasing list on the screen. And now for the big dog. Un poisson aux almonds, an almond croissant. Oh shit, can you hear it? Oh yes. Thank you guys so much for coming here, watching this video. I've really enjoyed making this one. If you're so inclined to comment, go ahead and let me know what things you think would count as camp. Anything you disagree with me on, please, I don't care. I love you and goodbye.